As a teacher, I was inspired by this story. So I would like to share this story with you all. Please do listen till the end and watch it. Hope this story would inspire you all too. A teacher named Thomas entered the class on Monday, and she had a habit of saying, "Love you all," when she entered the class. But that was not true from her heart, because she hated a boy in the class who was named Teddy. She hated Teddy because he was very untidy and shabby looking boy. She always complained about Teddy and she put negative remarks on him. Poor Teddy was feeling very bad about it. At the end of academics, Mrs. Thomas writes a bad remark about Teddy. And looking at this progress card, the principal calls Thomas and asks, "This report has to go to parents, and how do you write a negative report about a child?" So Mrs. Thomas replies, saying, "He has not at all progressed all through the academic. How do I write a positive report about him?" So the principal calls the previous teacher of Teddy to get his records of previous classes. When the staff gets the record of Teddy, principal sees the third class report of Teddy, and clearly the teacher has put a remark saying Teddy is a bright student. Then she turns up to the fourth class report, and there the remarks were saying that her Teddy's mother was suffering with cancer, and so she was not able to take care of Teddy, and he needs lots of attention. And coming to fifth grade report, the principal saw the report and was surprised to see that Teddy's mother is no more. The same thing was told to Thomas, and Mrs. Thomas just couldn't control her tears, and she told to principal saying, "Ma'am, I know what to do. I will do what I should do," and she goes to the class. The same way, Mrs. Thomas enters the class and says, "Love you all." Of course, she lied because she loved more than before now Teddy in a different way. She always called Teddy for so many things and she started praising him all the time. At the year end, all the children wanted to gift something to Mrs. Thomas. So when the children got the gifts, she could find a gift which was wrapped with newspaper, and she thought it must be definitely Teddy's. When she opens the gift, she could find a perfume bottle which was half used and a bracelet where some stones were fallen. She takes the perfume and she spreads all over her body and also wears the bracelet. She feels very happy and Teddy also feels very happy. And now he says to Mrs. Thomas, "Now, ma'am, you just look like my mother. You smell like my mother." And he also writes a note saying, "You are my best teacher." Years passed, and every year this letter was given to Mrs. Thomas where Teddy writes to her, "You're the best teacher forever." Days passed, years passed. Later, they both couldn't contact each other, and Teddy grows, and now he's a doctorate and he has completed his PhD. Age came for him to get married. Now he wants to somehow call Mrs. Thomas for his marriage. So he searches for her address, and at last he gets the address and posts an invitation to Mrs. Thomas. Teddy writes a letter along with the invitation saying, "I have seen many more people in life. Mrs. Thomas, this is Teddy. You are still the best teacher I have ever seen. I am getting married and I cannot dream of getting married without your presence." Along with that enclosed were to and fro flight tickets. Mrs. Thomas couldn't resist. She no more had perfume bottle, but she still preserved the bracelet. She wore that and went to the church. She was trying to sit in the last row, but
People over there recognizes Mrs. Thomas, invite her inside the hall, takes her to a place
with a placard written Mother. Teddy personally asked Mrs. Thomas to sit on this chair and whispered, "You are the closest to my mother that have ever experienced, and whatever I am today, it's because of you, ma'am."
Now Teddy introduces his wife to Mrs. Thomas and says, "This is the teacher, or she is my mother, for which I am here today. Without her, I wouldn't be in this stage."
Mrs. Thomas also says, "Without Teddy, I would never realize a teacher must first be a mother to the students of hers and only then a teacher. There is a Teddy in every class, and you can be that Thomas. Don't come back to the institution as a teacher. Go back as a parent who can also be a teacher and be a turning point of the life of those children. I believe they can build a new life."